thank you also, Steffi, for the great introduction and welcome to stage 2. And thank you for joining us in the late afternoon. Besides of all obstacles we are facing, strikes, and in our case, also sickness. So you saw 2 hats who are not there, unfortunately, and I have to apologize on behalf of them. They just got sick and couldn't attend, but we have a great replacement backup, Jochen Schlosser. Well, all you guys are going to introduce yourself later on anyways. So welcome to the session. We are talking about how AI is transforming programmatic advertising. I got introduced already. I'm working for BCN, and I'm also working for the IB programmatic the PTC, the Programmatic Trading Committee, and with this later role, I'm having the pleasure to moderate the session. AI, as already said, is a really hot topic. It is also a disruption, not only for our industry, but also basically for our society. And just today, the EU Parliament, I think they right now already passed the law on AI regulations, the AI Act. But while regulators are working on legal frameworks, AI is already changing on how ads are delivered to consumers. And we're here to learn from the real giants, the experts from Google, Adform, and Quantcast. They will share how AI methods like machine learning, generative AI are improving the ad delivery process, how we can reach people. And we talk about the smart tools they're using, the results they see, and also, well, the big responsibility which come with artificial intelligence. So, without further ado, I would like to briefly describe your current role and how AI intersects with your work in programmatic advertising right now. Perhaps we start right here with Jochen Schlosser.
Yeah, so thanks for inviting me on short notice, but it's a good coincidence that I'm here. I'm CTO in Adform, as such responsible for all of Adform's programmatic technology, creative technology, from a product portfolio perspective, as well as the technology selections. I also run the data science team in Adform. My background is actually, I'm a computer scientist. I have a PhD in algorithmic molecular modeling, computer science, where already 20 years ago, lots of image recognition, optimization algorithms, and especially, which is similar to advertising, pipelines of different stages to harden results that are created softer initially to also optimize CPU complexity, have been deployed. And that is extremely similar how things are being done in ad tech also today.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sebastian. I'm from Google. I'm part of the industry relations team, which means we're working closely with advertiser trade bodies across Europe and make sure that Google is a active contributor to the ecosystem. And my connection to AI is kind of twofold. I think Google has already announced like many years ago, 2016, that we are an AI-first company. So since then, we are using AI in our product. So that's already kind of is part of our daily job. But I think specifically, if we look at this year, what's happening this year, I think we are seeing 2 changes that's really changing our industry. One is AI, rapid acceleration of AI, and the second is third-party cookie deprecation. To me, I've been working quite heavily on third-party cookie deprecation, but I think that 2 topics are so closely aligned because AI will play such a huge part in how we make up for the granular signals that we're losing with the cookie going away, that you can't have like one topic without the other. And I think it's quite obvious that AI will not only help advertisers and marketers with overcoming third-party cookie deprecation, but also helping the core job, which is like driving profitable growth, building brands. And in a way, this change reminds me of the year when mobile came around and changed an entire industry. And I think it's quite exciting to see like the variety of challenges we can tackle with AI coming up.
Yes, hello. My name is Sara Sihelnik. I'm the country director for the DACH region at Quantcast, which is a programmatic DSP primarily. And I started working with AI back when I was a student. I actually studied geophysics. And back then already we were using machine learning based models to kind of analyze the surface of the ground, looking for natural resources and so on. So a little bit of a different context, but the logic behind it is very similar. Obviously, you use different types of data and you're trying to do something, generate a different output, but the concept behind it is very similar. And today I work at Quantcast, and all our solutions are basically AI-based. We're using machine learning, natural language processing, and deep learning to a certain extent. So basically since day one, since 2006, and it's part of our daily life.
Interesting, and thank you very much for the introduction. Perhaps to open the discussion, may I ask a question? What initially actually sparked your particular interest in the intersection of AI and programmatic advertising? Perhaps you can give some feedback.
Yeah, so if we think about the whole value chain of like how programmatic is being bought, so starting with planned up until like activation, optimization, and then even evaluating the results, it's being used in so many shapes and forms. Starting with, for example, how data is being collected and then out of different sources and then put together, analyzed to make sense of it, to feed your model, to then build accurate target audiences, so translate your brief into an actual target audience, how that's being used to personalize your ad and your messages. Then coming to the bidding strategy and optimization, AI allows you to use signals, not pre-segmented data. It allows you to use predictive models rather than multipliers, it's allowing autonomous optimization. You don't need a trader from 9 to 6 sitting there doing it, but rather have a system that can do this continuously 24/7 and also never forgets. And then I can continue, like we mentioned, the cookieless world where now we have a loss of signals or certain signals are not around anymore and we need to replace them. There is ad fraud, brand suitability. If my system can recognize this before it even delivers there, that's ultimately what I want, etc., etc. So I could go on, but basically it's not new. But definitely what we're seeing now with the deprecation of the third-party cookie, or the fact that the user journey is becoming more fragmented and spread across multiple channels like connected TV, mobile, out of home, etc. All this is where the future leads us to, and where AI can help us to continue to thrive.
Thank you. Well, that had already been a huge amount of different topics, which sparked your interest. Perhaps, Sebastian, what is a recent AI innovation in programmatic advertising you're particularly excited about?
I think it's not particularly one specific innovation. I think Sara mentioned it. I think AI touches so many topics in the supply chain. And I think the opportunity across all areas is just is super exciting to see what you can do. If you look at, for example, the creative creation process, the way you are able to reduce creation time, costs, etc. It's great. So we, for example, had a case together with Get Your Guide and Smartly.io that we announced recently, where we tried, where Get Your Guide tried to tailor the creatives to certain audiences, and they did it, and they created in the end over 4 million different creatives to an audience, reduced creative production costs by 94%. And if you look at those numbers from one case study, this is pretty exciting. And also think of the opportunities it gives you. Like if you can reduce your creative production time by so much, the time you can invest into other things like more strategy, I think is pretty fascinating.
That's obviously very interesting numbers. Is there anything to add? I mean, the people already addressed a couple of interesting topics.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that many people look at this right now, and it's also a typical thing, right? As the new thing, the hype, wow, AI is coming up. And I think that's also what you said earlier. It has been around for at least a decade, right? So we see some new things that you now mentioned, especially production processes, things that have been very, let's say, human labor heavy. But when I think back, Jörg, when I joined programmatic advertising, why did I do that? Because I was a research scientist before running 20,000 CPU cluster nodes with data in the size of the Amazon data warehouse in 2005. And I was wondering, where in the world do I find an industry that has that much data and we don't have to work in a research institute somewhere in the middle of nowhere? Well, and the answer is in digital advertising. We have 4 million queries per second just in Europe on the engine. And for every single one, you want to decide, is this the right one? For thousands of advertisers and line items. And this is just fascinating. When you blink, you have a million things that we need to decide in the data center. And I think this is what programmatic advertising makes really fascinating for tech people, because it has been like this: high volume, high scale, high velocity, high veracity. Really amazing. What has really, let's say, made me look at Gen AI, that's the discussion point right now, was more something where I got curious around development efficiency. So I just bootstrapped a system that is similar to our architecture, and I built a front end, and I built a middleware, and I built a back end. I did that in 1 day on the site. I haven't coded in 10 years, to be honest. And that was the amazing thing. Back in the days, it would have taken me probably a week, and I would have read through all of Stack Overflow, and I did it now just with talking, in that case, to ChatGPT. I haven't used Gemini yet, so apology for that. But these workflow improvements, making things fast, doing quicker research and having those conversations, I think this is really fascinating. And we also see that now, especially in the creative field, right? In the creative production process, in the pipeline there, where you step by step go through. And I think this is where the most impact will be short term. And long term, it's a new tool in the big AI box that we already have. And then we will see what else do we have apart from chatbots on top of the systems in the next half year. But it will be an evolution, and it will not, let's say, kill everything that we have done so far in the last 10 years.
Perhaps one step back. I mean, we already talked about a lot of impacts, concrete cases as an over, but I mean, step back. What AI methods are actually used in programmatic advertising? Who could give perhaps a quick overview on this?
I can start. So I think everyone does a little bit the same. There's a huge lot of simple machine learning things, simple regression models, because you just deploy tens of thousands, you probably guess more millions of them at the same time. So every single placement, every single line item is trained every day, multiple times. There's a huge engine of simple regression models. And then it depends on what works, what doesn't work. It's a lot about the trade-off between speed of getting to a good enough model and the actual campaign runtime. Doesn't help if you have a perfect model in half a year, if then the campaign stops 1 day later or in 6 weeks. You need to find the right balance. So we use Bayesian bandits formats. We use also in certain aspects neural feature embeddings. We use the regression models. There's a lot of stuff out there. And I think that's the most important one for every good platform. I think you said that also. It's about A/B testing, right? The research scientists, the data scientists, they need to have access to the real system where they are then able to do A/B testing on 0.1% of the traffic to see what works, what doesn't work. And this constantly happens. So we have tens of thousands of models working, all using different methodology, but none of it today is Gen AI because it's just not suited for numbers predictions jobs. It's good for creative output, for natural language processing and these types of things. And the rest, we'll see. It will take still a bit of time.
I think Gen AI has dominated quite a bit the headlines in the last year because it kind of also upended the world's understanding of what AI can do. But I think if you look at like the whole system, there are other branches of AI, for example, predictive AI or analytical AI, that are less prominent because they are not kind of maybe not that mind-blowing like the Gen AI examples, but are no less important to the industry. Because if you look at measurement use cases or also prediction, which bit is the right one? How do I like analyzing huge amounts of data? You mentioned it, the millions of data points you have to analyze, and then having those two additional AI types coming into play, and I think everything coming together like Gen AI, predictive AI, analytical AI, machine learning, etc. It's the combination that makes it so powerful.
Mm-hmm. I would like to add something on the natural language processing part, just so that maybe the audience can imagine something more specific, be less abstract. But for example, natural language processing allows you to also in real time, for example, crawl all the keywords, the content of websites that you're consuming online, and then extract basically based on that your interests. But where the AI part comes into place is that the system is able to put this into context. So, for example, the word apple could mean the fruit apple, but also the brand Apple, right? Or if I read an article about where the keywords Tesla and Elon Musk appear, it doesn't mean that I'm in market to actually buy a Tesla, for example, right? So the machine, through this natural language processing system, is able to actually put this into context, almost like us humans can do, right? And then on the Gen AI, so I agree, it's AI as such is not new, but the types of AI, the subcategories of AI that are being used, that's more where this Gen AI piece is new, and definitely at the beginning for the programmatic buying. And something that, for example, we are working on is how can we take a brief of a client, like typical target audience brief that planners and agencies work with, and then you just basically copy paste it into the system, and that can translate it into our system and build the audience in our system for you. So it's less so dependent on the actual planner, the human being, thinking about the keywords, how to represent this audience, and thinking about the demographics and so on. But rather you take straight away that brief. Maybe it's from a research that you run, and you know exactly that's my target audience, and it does this for you. So that's also a way how to use Gen AI already for audience planning, and then you activate it programmatically.
It's interesting, and it's a perfect bridge to my next question, actually, because if we go a little bit, more structured into the details of programmatic advertising, data targeting is obviously one important piece. So how is AI, besides of the example we were just giving, impacting the data targeting and enabling higher precision and personalization in ad campaigns? I'm not sure who wants to go next.
I think it's something that we already touched upon briefly, right? I think if you go into a data provider, for instance, third-party data providers, they have sources of data that they access in Europe today, let's say in many cases compliantly, I would presume. So that has been the issue in the past, and they all use different models, right? So some go for exactly the context of the websites, then they go on frequency of visitation patterns. Others just do similarity models where they say we have panel information, we know what people are like, what properties they have, because we have interviewed them, or we know their socio-demographics and so on and so forth. And then you model that with it has been around for a while, right? The lookalike approaches and so on and so forth. What model works behind that is actually not that important, because at the end it's all evaluated with statistical criteria, and then you see how that works. And in some cases, it's also how we did it in the past. We use the AI more for data prep, because it's in many cases not the Gen AI piece, but the LLMs, feature embedding, because it is too slow for the actual bidding model with the 4 million per second. But in order to get the right information out of the domains, out of the URLs and the context, it provides high value, and that can be done slower and more static. That's what I meant earlier also in the drug discovery process that I was working in. It's often multi-stage things, and the most important thing is that you have good input data. 70% of the work of any data scientist or of a data engineer in that sense as a team needs to go in getting high quality data into the system. There's the good old engineering saying, shit in, shit out, and you can have the best AI model on the planet. If you feed it with crappy fuel, it will get you nowhere.
You're just taking my point away, so I thought just...
Apology for that.
No, that's what I wanted to say, especially when it comes to targeting. I think really the input is super important. Having your own data and making it available to the AI so that it can really give you the best results is super important, and every marketer should think about, okay, how can I collect really consented first-party data, make it available to the system. And then I think it can help you like with, to me, 3 things. First, I think it's reach, an audience. So making sense of aggregated data on top of your own data to find people who are interested in your products and make them buy more. The second is really on ROI, driving results. So every market has maybe different KPIs, and you can maybe even tailor your or construct your campaign backwards. So instead of saying, okay, find me people who are like between 18 and 25 with an interest in tennis, you can basically say, well, sell my product to everyone who is interested in tennis. So kind of a backward engineering to the campaign. And obviously the last one is time efficiency, making sense of like automating tasks and hence creating operational efficiency.
I'm just going to add one thing to the data part. What is then good data? And definitely it's when you can get first-party data rather than third-party data, that's where you're really winning, paired, of course, with your good model. But that has just the real-timeness because it reflects best the user behavior in real time, and that can change very quickly. So first-party data is what I just wanted to point out in that sense.
I think there's one thing important for people who have not worked with things like that. So you have to just let go and you have to accept that you're deploying something which will not be able to really explain you how it gets to the result. So many AI engines are more black boxes. That's why multi-stage processes are so interesting to be built, because it still gives you some control. But if an AI engine does a prediction on a certain probability for a person to convert, for an impression to be bought, for a creative to be selected, many people expect it still to be like a decision tree that they learned in business school or so. But an AI is like 1 trillion decision teams executed at the same time, being convoluted and across multiple layers. You will never be able to look at it at the end and be able to follow the decision. So you have to find the right balance on what you want to use, how much transparency you want, how much control you want, and how much you trust the result. And at the end, it's often a journey where you start with something, you deploy it side by side in parts, and at some point you might let go, right? On a DSP, maybe 2013, you were optimizing 80% per hand. 2017, maybe just a little bit. Today, just the stuff where offline information or some uncertain information comes in, right? But you don't go self-driving on day one. And it's really a trust exercise between the machine and the human running it or management deploying it, because you can't tell your boss later if the system has done something wrong, why it has done something wrong. You can just say, well, it took the wrong decision. I don't know how it went out. So multi-stage processes, control points, checks and flags, and then you can take them out step by step. And what you actually use is not that important, but that you build this process and you decide on where do you let go, where do you want control, and how much interaction do I need in those hierarchies. This is extremely important when you work with AI.
Can I say something to that? Because I partially agree, but I think also nowadays there is systems where you can almost reverse engineer, use the same capabilities to give people insight into the black box much more than before.
I think it's a current research topic and there's different opinions on that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Interesting. And I would like to dig a bit deeper on that point, not the reverse engineering part necessarily, but more like the auction mechanics and the management, because I think that's super important. I mean, how is AI particularly enhancing strategies right now and optimizing budgets? Besides you just have to let it go, but how does it effectively work? Perhaps Sebastian, you want to give some insights?
I mean, we talked about it already, kind of. It's the way AI can analyze a huge amount of data and really is able to predict a certain outcome, so that the machine knows, okay, how much should I bid for this impression, because they can probably estimate how likely the user is to convert. And there are, I think, different varieties, kind of playgrounds, how the auction mechanism work, but just like finding more of the people who are more likely to convert, similar to your existing customers, and then being able to make the right decision for each and every bid, also not only in terms of value or CPM that is being delivered, but also then finding the right creative, changing it. I think this is where it's really powerful.
Yeah, I think we touched upon it briefly, but maybe try to do a bit more hands-on, right? So if you set up a campaign in a DSP, you usually start with setting your goal, right? Then the engine asks you what kind of KPIs do you want, and then it makes a recommendation. Maybe it also starts automatic, right? Some have that as a control point, others just start. It makes a recommendation of what algo optimization should you use, right? Should you use a cost per click optimization, cost per acquisition optimization, return on advertising spend, net advertising spend after returns? Who knows if you have that? So that's the first step where recommendation and some sort of AI comes in. Then you actually run the campaign, all the requests hit the system, and for every single impression, it's evaluated. Is it valuable or not to go in? That's a lot of AI happening there. But then you might have split the budgets across different orders, across different line items. And you might want to say, I want to do that manually. But many people also say nowadays, all right, I don't want to do that manually. I've given you a primary KPI, a secondary KPI, a tertiary KPI. So it's now your job system to do that. So you tick the flag and you say, please reallocate the budgets across all those line items and orders according to the best performance, how I have described it. Then the AI picks it up, and a couple of times a day, it shifts the budgets left, right, front, and center. If you want to have frequency capping in third-party land, you use the cookie. If you want to have frequency capping in first-party land with all the different identifiers, you need an AI approach, a model that predicts which cookies or first-party IDs belong to the same user. And then the capping happens also via AI. The SSPs are sending trillions of bid requests. You don't need them all. So there's an AI closing the door, just taking the one that has actually campaign targeting value. So the DSPs and the SSPs, they have AIs in, I think I gave a presentation 2-3 weeks ago to the portfolio companies of our PE investor. I think we have 18 AI-enabled services on the platform, and we will build 4 more next year, mostly recommender systems, things for pipelining. So almost everything you do on a DSP, you run into an AI somewhere in the back end.
Interesting point you brought up is, obviously a key aspect and a key part for the success of AI also and for right decisions is that I can measure success and that I can do campaign measurement at all. And the third-party cookie, as we all know, is under pressure. How is that going to affect the efficiency of these kind of tools? And is there anything how AI helps to overcome these kinds of issues when it comes down to measurement?
Yeah, I can start. I wanted to add to the last point. If you add, for example, live brand uplift measurement into the mix as well, you can use that as well, where the machine starts to optimize then maybe on your perfect target frequency, because it knows that's where I get my highest uplift and better performance. And of course, we always say at Quantcast, we are obsessed with measurement, and every time when we develop a new product or a new solution, or we go down a new route, we start with the measurement piece, because you can't optimize what you can't measure, and if you can't measure it, you can't prove that there is actual value if I put my ad spend in there. And the same way as we're using it, as we explained now extensively in like the targeting, you can use it as well then to measure, to bring it cross device and bring in the omni-channel mix to show you what is my full funnel impact and my overlap. So if I run awareness and consideration upper mid funnel, and then as well conversion lower funnel. So yeah, there's all these places where AI is also then coming into place. And then on the cookieless piece, obviously that's actually where I think AI can make a massive difference, because when we think about the conversation, everyone is always talking about, or still talking about, what is going to be the signal that will replace the third-party cookie, or what's the best signal to use. But we spoke about this also before coming on the stage here, that actually, rather than thinking of just one solution, like for example ID signals, everyone should, or it's rather more future-proof to build your system in a way that it can work with all the alternative signals that are out there, whether it's a contextually based signal, first-party signal, ID-based signal, if it's just some technical information passed through in the browser, whatever it is. And why AI comes into place is because before you only had the third-party cookie. But now with all these different signals, they are passed through in different shapes and forms, you almost have to imagine. And to bring them all together and to be able to make sense of all these signals together, that's where your AI comes into place, because you need to be able to process not just a lot of data signals, but also very different type of data signals in a very short amount of time to then create your decision process on that and also do your measurement. And so I think this is where, if companies truly pioneer AI, where they can really win in the future.
I think measurement is really one element where AI can make a huge difference. I think if you think about it, what made digital advertising so successful is the ability to measure the success of a campaign, and hence to drive confidence for a marketer to know what worked, what didn't work, and how can I invest more into what worked. So and then also measuring efficiencies, etc. So that was super powerful. And we used to live in a world, and we talked about it last year at the panel, is we used to live in a world where we could observe basically every conversion that happened and customer interaction, and only had to model for a small part of it. And now this has changed. Different reasons, third-party cookies going away, stricter requirements from regulators, everything. So the amount of observable data is becoming less and less. So we need to rely on new technologies like conversion modeling more and more, on top to using different data sources to really maximize the amount of observable data that we see. So, and here AI comes into play, because these modeling capabilities are mainly driven by AI models. And so we can maintain the measurement capabilities that we used to have and rely on.
Yeah, I totally agree to that. It also comes with a huge challenge because in digital advertising, we have for more than a decade relied on a super simplistic, also idiotic, but still kind of standardized way to measure the last click, the last cookie counts. If you now have a system 1, a system 2, a system 3, and then you have a GA installation, for instance, on the back, today you're accepting it that they're kind of a couple of percentage points away. I think when everyone does their own AI model, it will be taking quite a while until there be more of a consensus gone. We actually have an example right now in the market happening around the globe. Google Analytics went from Universal to GA4. It went from, let's say, trackability as we defined it in the past towards modeled conversions. And there is right now huge discrepancies out there. And it's a big discussion how to solve that, how to agree what is the source of truth, what is not the source of truth. So I think this is for advertisers. It will be pretty heavy discussion in the next years. What is the right modeled conversion way? How do I define my system that rules, and how will the others take those conversions into their reporting or not use their reporting at all? Because last click was bad, but it was standardized. The future will be more complicated, and AI helps to create a uniform standard for one platform, but across platforms, it will be even more difficult to say what is right and what is wrong. And there is still quite a lot of challenges here. AI will play a big role, but it's also extremely difficult then to have insights into these tracking discrepancies. In the past, it has been just peculiar manual work, lots of checks, customer journeys, but it was possible. In the future, it's really, really much more difficult to get towards consensus.
And you have to have more trust into the technology, because it's because if you're talking about predicted or modeled conversions, it's obviously a trust element in there, that you trust your technology provider to calculate the right outcome.
We're getting to the juicy questions, I see. Unfortunately, we only have 2.5 minutes left. But before we close up, we talked about benefits and who's benefiting. Who's actually benefiting more from the use of artificial intelligence, and how? Is it the buyer? You're more representing the buyer, or is it the seller?
I think there's a pretty good theory around that. If both sides optimize for the equilibrium price, both sides win. That's business, and that's how it works.
Okay. So they both have to do something. But who is in advantage right now with the latest technology developments?
It depends on your chosen technology, right? If your DSP has deployed it or your SSP or how you do that, but maybe you have a view to that. I think it's equally distributed.
Yeah, I don't know if we can say there's a winner or like a loser. I think we just discussed that AI is basically touching every part of the programmatic supply chain. I think just it's important like to mention that AI will not replace a marketer. So AI is a tool, and the core job of a marketer remains the same. So drive profitable growth, build your brand, and as a marketer, you're not competing against AI. You're just competing against a competitor who is using AI. So AI we see as an enabler, and the one who uses it the best, I think, will benefit the most. And this could be on tech side, buy side, sell side.
I'm going to say, just to say something different.
Thank you for that.
I'm going to say it's the person being targeted with the ad, because the person will only get more relevant ads.
I love that answer. That's perfect. I hope you all can appreciate this next time you see an ad. No, thank you very much. As a closing question, because we have like 30 seconds, I would really like you to answer in one word, one quick sentence is, yeah, that's difficult, I know, Jochen. What is the key takeaway for the audience when we talk about transformation of programmatic advertising with AI?
I can't say that in one word, but I can say it quickly. Stay curious, educate yourself, hire the right people that have power and energy for that, because it will not get easier, but it will be exciting.
That's for you, it's a one word.
In one word, I would say, well, be optimistic, because I think we talked so much about the opportunities with the technology, and be curious and make the most of it.
Thank you.
Difficult, but I would just say, do not be scared. And just start. It's complex, but it's also not. So I think, do not be scared, do not be skeptical, but rather enhance it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Big round of applause for the panelists, and thank you for attending here. I hope you could take something.